Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us to celebrate the 12th year anniversary of the Indiana Lifetime Law. My name is Chip Shimmer, Executive Director of the Indiana Statewide 911 Board. The Statewide 911 Board first began in partnership with the Indiana Youth Services Association in 2016 to promote the Lifeline Law through their Make a Good Decision social media campaign. Today, we'll explain what the Indiana Lifeline Law is, discuss the work the produced student body is doing to amend the law, and share the impact of this year's Make a Good Decision campaign. To begin, I'd like to introduce the Indiana Youth Services Association Executive Director, David Westenberger. David came to the association with a great deal of experience and understanding of the challenges and support of leading a youth-serving organization, having been the executive director of a member agency, the Foundation for Youth in Columbus, Indiana, over a decade. David had a degree in psychology from Millstadt College and a master's degree in administration and education from IU. David is here to share the story of the Indiana Youth Services Association and Make a Good Decision campaign. David.
Thanks, Jeff. IYSA is celebrating our 51st year this year. We were founded to improve the quality of life for young people across the state of Indiana in 1973. We're a collection of agencies, youth service bureaus across the state, serving young people in almost 7 counties. Prevention programs. Our philosophy is decrease risk factors and increase protective factors for young people. And young people will thrive. We support youth workers in their professional development, in their career journey. We support victims within identified trafficking all across the state. But today we're here to talk about our work with Lifeline Law and Senator Merritt when this came into statute over 10 years ago. So create awareness about the Lifeline Law. Word out on college students to help young people and get prevention strategy, put protective factors in place, and improve the quality of life for young people here and all other things across the state. So, having said that, Senator Merritt, I'd like to thank Senator Merritt for being here.
Okay. Now we'd like to bring up Senator Jim Merritt. 4 years ago, Jim Merritt stepped away from the Indiana Senate after serving 30 years in the State House. During his 30 years in service, Senator Merritt brought the emergency 211 telephone hotline to Indiana and wrote several laws, including the Lifeline Law, which has gathered us here today. Senator Merritt now spends his time growing his consulting company, JWM Consulting. And here to give the history of the Indiana Lifeline Law is the Honorable Senator Jim Merritt. You're welcome.
Thank you. I'm going to leave it to Becca and Jason to talk a little bit about the history of the law. But throughout my 30 years, we tried to tackle difficult issues, and 3 of those issues were the Kids First License Plate, Safe Haven Law, and this law was the Lifeline Law. And they're all very special because they're kind of counterintuitive. We with the Kids First License Plate, we started it was the 3rd plate that ever been established, and the monies went towards prevention of child abuse. And usually in government, prevention is kind of the last thing. The government's kind of cleaning up after the parade. The second in 2000 was the Safe Haven Law, where we allowed individuals, parents, mothers, and fathers to drop their baby off at a fire station, police station, at a hospital, and people have made great strides with that. They just had their 100th baby box announced just the other day, and then the Lifeline Law. It's counterintuitive because people in the beginning thought that we were incentivizing underage drinking. And that is so far from the truth. Becca will get into this, but for the last 12 years or so, we have raised awareness, and I did that for the other two laws as well. Indiana, any state, any union, our union could pass legislation, the greatest legislation in the world, but if no one knows about it, uh, what good is it? So we have stepped out over the last 12 years and raised awareness. Kelly Mitchell, state treasurer, Kelly Mitchell was a big assist. Number one, under her watch, we had text 911 in all 92 counties. And that was a big, big issue because, as you know, um, young people text. They don't talk on the phone. And if you're in a situation in a home that has a horror going on with somebody that is overserved, they're going to text. They're not going to make that phone call. And so now we have saved 57 people, countless more because the stake is anonymous. But I'm very proud of this law, and I'm so happy that Daniel Elliott has stepped into the shoes of state treasurer and picked up the baton and is helping us with E91 monies. Because that awareness, is, as you'll hear today, is not free. And we're just trying to do our part to make this law knowledgeable to everyone under 21 and those parents. I can tell you one of the greatest parts of my life was when freshman orientation during the summer happens and somebody texts me that they're talking about the Lifeline law. And so a lot of universities are getting it. We're interested in all 89 campuses in the state of Indiana getting it. And this is just a celebration of what we've done and what we're going to do. And I very much appreciate the opportunity to be here today.
Thank you, Senator Merritt. Our next speaker is Indiana Treasurer Daniel Elliott. Daniel serves as the chair of the statewide 911 board, among a number of other positions. As a state's chief investment officer, Treasurer Elliott oversees the management of $16 billion on a daily basis. Prior to becoming treasurer, Daniel Elliott worked his entire 25-year professional career in information technology, first as a software engineer and then as a software architect. An entrepreneurial at heart, Treasurer Elliott started his own software consulting company focusing on software application development and cybersecurity. This experience gives Treasurer Elliott unique insight into the work in the statewide 911 boards and what we do. Our biggest advocate, we are thankful to have him here today to share the history of text to 911 in Indiana. Treasurer Elliott.
So let's be honest. You guys are seeing a bunch of guys with gray hair and suits talking about college. What do we know about it, right? And that could be true. I'm not going to lie. I have two daughters who are college age right now, and I've got a 12-year-old son who in a few years will be. But sometimes I get to do cool stuff. And yeah, I have to sit in a lot of board meetings. And to be honest, I don't know ready to wear a suit. I have to sometimes. If I don't, I don't. I always wear my cowboy boots. That's just given. But I get to do some cool things. And one of the cool things I get to do is I get to chair 911. As Jeff mentioned, I'm a software engineer, so I am a nerd. I know how to code. I still know how to code. You give me a laptop, guys, I can code like a beast. But the first day when I became treasurer, there's a lot of things that I had to learn. And I've made a few mistakes. But the first day, the first meeting of 911, when they started talking about some of those technical issues, TCP/IP reports and other problems, I was in my element. Now, as a software engineer or a nerd, we know how we learn. We make mistakes. And then we reiterate and we do it again until we get it right. Kind of like college. Sometimes People make mistakes. That's okay. The Indiana Lifeline Law is there to help you realize, okay, maybe your friend here made a mistake, but we should not hesitate to help them because when they need help, they need help. Now, if you can't tell, my staff is probably getting a little nervous. They had this whole speech prepared for me, and I just told them chuck it. I tend to do my own thing, and that's what I did. So sorry to all the powers that be, but it's important that we talk about what you guys are doing with this campaign. What I am extremely impressed by is not just what we're doing now with the current laws that we have. I want to thank Senator Merritt for what he's done to make sure that those laws are and that those laws had been enacted. But I also want to recognize that there are changes that need to be made. Because right now that law doesn't protect maybe the person who did OD or the person who did consume so much alcohol that they now have alcohol poisoning. But we have Senator Deary here and other senators who we want to talk to. Because while I can advocate and I can support you, which I do, Senator Deary and the other members of the General Assembly are the ones who make those decisions. And it's important for you to realize that you have a voice. It's important for you to realize that it means a lot more to Senator Deary if you talk to him personally. You explain to him your personal story. Explain why this law is important. Versus you get advocates, folks with gray hair, coming up there and talking about why those changes need to be made. So I'm very, very pleased to be supportive of your efforts. Now let's talk a little about text 911, because as was mentioned, this is actually something fairly innovative. Indiana is literally at the bleeding edge, not the cutting edge, the bleeding edge of 911 technology. Every county in the state of Indiana has text 911. I was told a story recently by a sheriff of a county in another state that used text 911 work. But text 911 didn't work in their county, in their state, because they didn't have it. But it bounced over at the cell tower in Indiana, and they were able to respond. Think how cool that is. We have had over 2 million 911 text to 911 calls, either outgoing or incoming. Sometimes it's as simple as, hey, we've all done it. Anybody ever butt dial before? Done it, and it happens. And so the 911 center says, hey, you okay? Yeah, sorry, that was a mistake. No big deal. And that saves resources. But more importantly, there's a story, and I won't mention names. There was a woman who was being abused. She was able to text. All she said was, please help. And when I say please help, it was PLS. We all know we shorten everything with that. PLS help. And the man who was abusing her was arrested, and she's safe. These are the things that you're doing that will have impact. And that's what I will tell you to keep doing. Keep having impact. Thank you for what you're doing. Thank you for all the work. And please keep pushing forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Treasurer Elliott. The reason this press conference being held at Purdue today is due to the great work our next two speakers have done for the campus, or done on campus. First is Rebecca Seiner, a junior majoring in biology with minors in law and society, chemistry, and psychology. Rebecca is the Purdue Student Body Vice President. She has held over leadership roles, including Resident Hall Association Vice President, National Communications Coordinator. She and her colleague, Student Body President Jason Packard, have formed a coalition of student governments to promote this cause and is here to tell us about it. Rebecca?
So as former Senator Merritt discussed, the Indiana Lifeline Law provides amnesty from arrest or prosecution to those seeking medical attention for underage drinking. The parties protected under this law are the individual reporting the medical emergency, those who assist the caller, stay on scene, and remain compliant. Those are the only two parties. The person in need of medical attention is not protected. We are here today to discuss why this policy is incomplete without protection for the person in need of medical attention. The Indiana Lifeline Law is in effect today because of Purdue student government students 12 years ago. The former Purdue student government president, Brett Haley, along with 4 other Indiana student body presidents, proposed the original Indiana Lifeline Law to former Senator Merritt. Recognizing the public health crisis created by underage drinking, Senator Merritt minimized this by authoring 2012 Senate Bill 274. This bill flew through both the House and the Senate without a single no vote on either floor, gaining immunity from certain alcohol offenses for reporting an underage drinking medical emergency. In 2014, Senator Merritt proceeded to attain protection for victims of sex offenses and those who report a crime with the passing of his Bill 227. In 2016, 2019, and 2020, Senator Merritt attempts to gain protection for the individual in need of medical attention. However, this legislation died in committee as it never received a hearing due to not having the advocacy and student backing it once did in 2012. Hence, why I stand before you now. As a demographic impacted by the Indiana Lifeline Law, Jason and I realized that our voices are powerful. We, as students, have the ability to affect legislative change. This initiative is one that Jason and I have been progressing for the past year and a half. Conversations surrounding this began to resurface last year due to our students being hesitant to call medical services for underage intoxication emergencies. Throughout our efforts to educate on current protections and advocate for the person in need of medical attention, we have had countless students share their stories. These stories have made it evident that our students are more fearful of the legal repercussions of underage drinking than the potentially life-threatening condition of alcohol poisoning. Within the U.S., roughly 4,000 of our youth, those under 21, die of alcohol-related causes annually. That is nearly 1 person every 2 hours. Is this unsettling to hear? Because it should be. Alcohol-related deaths are avoidable by easing the fear of our youth to make the call to save a life. This fear is detrimental to the health and safety of our student body, and we, as the student body representatives, will not allow this fear to persist. Now, to address the conversation of whether amnesty policies encourage or incentivize underage drinking. Having disputed this for the past year and a half, Senator Merritt and Indiana Youth Services Association for over a decade of their careers, I can confidently answer no. No, amnesty policies do not encourage or incentivize underage drinking. The answer of no is one in which I need all Indiana policymakers to hear. We are not seeing an increase in reported underage drinking after implementation of medical amnesty policy. Similar to Indiana's adoption of the Indiana Lifeline Law in 2012, most Midwest states adopted their own medical amnesty policies in the early 2010s. Many of these states included protection for the person in need of medical attention. Throughout the 2010s, within Indiana, there was a 3.9% decrease in underage alcohol use, and within the Midwest, there was a 6.2% decrease in underage alcohol use. We have empowered our student population to acknowledge that gaining protection for the person in need of medical attention is tangible. 12 years ago, the Indiana Lifeline Law Coalition was formed, comprising of student governments throughout the state of Indiana, to create a culture of seeking help for medical emergencies involving underage intoxication. These students assisted in the writing of the bill, testified on the bill, and lobbied members of the General Assembly. The original intention of the coalition was to provide protection for the caller, those who assist the caller, and actually the person in need of medical attention as well. Today, the Indiana Lifeline Law Coalition has been reformed to finish this fight. Senator Alting has filed Bill 74, Extension of Lifeline Law Immunity. Senator Deary has agreed to be a co-author, and Representative Hamilton has signed on to assist the bill moving forward in the House. If students could change the law to save lives in 2012, then it can and will be done again in 2025. Thank you.
Thank you, Rebecca.
Purdue student body president Jason Packard is a senior studying chemical engineering is the Residence Hall Association President, Boiler Exam Treasurer, and Tarkington Hall Resident Education Assistant. Jason and Rebecca's leadership and advocacy efforts have significantly impacted Purdue's student community, particularly in areas of legal services, medical amnesty, and community building. Let's welcome Jason.
Hello, I'm Jason Packard, a Purdue senior and the president of the Purdue Student Body and Government. As Becca shared, the Lifeline Law falls short of its promise of keeping our students safe. The numbers and statistics we've heard illustrate a clear reality. Alcohol-related amnesty laws save lives, and they do not encourage underage drinking. However, these numbers miss a critical component of the story: the experience through the student's eyes. It misses the fear students experience when they're forced to choose between risking arrest and academic sanctions or getting their friend help. It misses the residual reluctance for individuals, friends, houses, and communities to ever seek help again. It misses the broken trust with law enforcement, university administrators, and peers. This perspective needs to be understood and used to guide effective legislation and programming to keep our students safe. So what do these experiences look like on our campus? My sophomore and junior years, I used to be a resident assistant within Tarkington Hall. Finding an overserved student who had been thrown out of a car or a nervous friend contemplating making a call was a weekly occurrence. So why do students not call? And if they do, why does it take them so long? They are scared. Students are scared of the perceived amorphous consequences they will receive upon calling 911. Their fear blocks their judgment and delays them from taking the quick, decisive action desperately needed in such situations. And if the student does call, law enforcement arrives, does their job, and cites the student requiring medical attention, the fear becomes traumatic. The student has, the student has broken their friend's trust, gotten them in trouble, and now will likely never make the call again. This problem grows beyond the singular student. They might tell their friends the story and how they will never call. Perhaps they tell their dorm floor their experiences, and now that entire floor is discouraged to call. Or worst of all, perhaps a Greek house has an incident, and now an entire community is turned off from calling 911. This fear, direct or secondhand, has manifested into the dangerous drinking cultures we witness on our campuses. As student leaders, university legislators, and educators, we must empower students to make the call and save lives. So how do we eliminate this fear and empower students to make the call? We need legislative change and a revitalized statewide education initiative. Let's start with that first topic, legislative change. A year and a half ago, Rebecca and I met with former Senator Merritt and learned of the Lifeline Law's student-led origin. We saw a unique opportunity to improve our campus's safety and were inspired to set out to amend the Indiana Lifeline Law and get protection for both parties. We met with nearly every department at Purdue dealing with alcohol to learn how this change could impact our school. We met with our Purdue Police Department to hear their experiences and learn of their commitment to keeping our students safe. To understand these issues beyond our own campus, we began speaking to student leaders at other universities across Indiana. Hearing of similar unsafe drinking cultures at other universities was disheartening. For example, one university has a tradition of backpacking, where groups of students are left to sleep off alcohol poisoning by putting on a weighted backpack to prevent them from rolling over and suffocating on their vomit. The reality that these cultures exist beyond our own campus is unsettling, but our shared experiences unified our student governments around the Lifeline Law mission and the goal to protect our students. Comprised of student government presidents and representatives from Indiana State, DePaul, Butler, Indiana University, and Valparaiso University, we launched the Indiana Lifeline Law Coalition 2.0, centered around amending the Indiana Lifeline Law to get protection for both parties. With a clear vision of the problem at Purdue and other institutions across Indiana, we began meeting with legislators to pitch our change. Now, we're excited to be working with Senator Alting, Senator Deary, and Representative Hamilton to make this change a reality. and make our campuses safer. Even with legislative change, the battle is not over. How do we educate our students on their protections and motivate them to make the call? Our second and equally important initiative is to launch a revitalized statewide education campaign. Students need to know their protections and feel safe to make the call. Students learn about the Lifeline Law through a variety of ways. Often, in-state students are educated in Indiana high schools. At Purdue, you may hear of the Indiana Lifeline Law from your orientation leader, or RA. As Purdue Student Government, and in collaboration with Indiana Youth Services Association, we are actively working to increase these existing methods of education and establishing new education platforms. And through the Indiana Lifeline Law Coalition, we are working with universities across the state to promote making a call and saving a life. When they're in fearful moments, students need to feel encouraged and empowered to take decisive action and call 911 to save their friend's life. This year, as Purdue Student Government and as the Indiana Lifeline Law Coalition, we are thrilled to work with Senator Alting, Senator Deary, and Representative Hamilton to amend the Indiana Lifeline Law, and with the Indiana Youth Services Association to lead our education campaign and encourage students to make a call and save a life. Thank you.
Thank you, Jason. John Griffith is an integrated marketing specialist with Urban One and Radio One, who help organizations harness the power of multimedia through paid and earned media campaigns. With more than 30 years of experience, John's leadership plays an integral role in the success of the Make Good Decisions social media campaign. John will now come down and share the details and the impact of this year's campaign. Thank you, Jeff. And thank you, everyone. As Senator Merritt and Treasurer Elliott talked, the education, you can have the best law, but if you don't have information and education, as Jason was saying, it will fall short or fall flat. So that is where controlled paid media that can be intrusive beyond just organic efforts can make a difference. I have a video that I think will explain some of the strategy before I get to the results better than I can.
Every 44 hours, a college-age person dies from alcohol poisoning. Binge drinking and fear can be a deadly combination. The fear of what would happen to them if they reached out for help when one of their friends needed it. Make Good Decisions and the Indiana Lifeline Law helps eliminate that fear. The Know Enough, Make Good Decisions campaign empowers teens to call or text 911 in case of an underage drinking emergency. It lets them know that if they stay and cooperate, they will be protected. Success of this campaign is measured by how many college students we reach digitally. It's about engagement from messaging and visits to the Make Good Decisions website. Over time, our creative has evolved from a stern voice to a more inspiring message. We provide tools to make a good decision in an underage drinking emergency. Our goal is to meet our target audience where they are. We want them to stop in their tracks with fun and empowering creatives. Each fall, our creative reaches new eyeballs on platforms like YouTube, TikTok, Snapchat, and TV streaming services. We capture the attention of our target audience. Urban One is proud to partner with the Indiana Youth Services Association and the Indiana State 911 Board to empower the youth of Indiana to know enough to save a life.
That explains a little bit about the strategy behind the creative. As referenced, this campaign, which has gone on since the inception of the law, started with a more stern, authoritarian approach that has since been one that's more welcoming, more eye-catching, and again, as the phrase says, meeting students, where they are. The timing and the tactics on how this works with that, there we go, is starting in August when freshmen are moving into dorms and returning students are coming back to school. That's when the Make Good Decisions campaign launches this year with new, fresh creative. And we geo-targeted students on these various platforms to meet them again where they are, like YouTube, Instagram, Snapchat, TikTok.
and streaming TV as well. The campaign in over 2 months generated nearly 1 million total impressions in just 2 months, including 670,000 total views for video. 76,000 of them came on YouTube, and over 500,000 of them then came on social media platforms. Importantly, though, as the engagement data shows, this wasn't a passive experience. As you see, over 28,000 likes, comments, and shares, which led to over 13,000 visits to the Make Good Decisions website. Over 4,000 of those came directly from ads that were clicked on by the students, by the users, and the rest of them found their way there after exposure to the campaign. We are proud and honored to be partners in this effort with the Indiana Youth Services Association and statewide 911 board. And thank you. And again, proud of the results and our participation. Before we conclude, I do want to add one more thing concerning text to 911. Indiana text 911 system now allows translation for 150 different languages. It's like done through AI. You type from your native language, and it automatically converts it. The dispatcher doesn't have to know language. He responds, and it will automatically convert it to the language. That concludes today's press conference. Press kits are available, and our speakers will be available to the media for questions and one-on-one interviews. Thank you for taking the time to be here today and helping us get the word out about the Indiana Lifeline Law. If you have questions for the speakers, if you're sitting at your position and wish to ask those questions, we'll have them come down. When you push the button in front of you, hold it down, it'll turn green. You've got to keep your finger on the button the whole time you're asking the question, or that's off. Again, thank you everybody for being here to support this cause. Have a good nice day. The question was, what has happened in the past where we add bills the last, I forget the years. Right, yeah, I don't like to talk about the feats, but it's a good question. And various times we had different types of bills. For instance, you may recall in 2017, I had something to do with 24 bills that had to do with the opioid crisis, of which 17 passed into law, and we believe that the bill at that time covered overdoses, as well as alcohol over serving, and that was a bridge too far for the committee members that this bill was assigned to, and so I believe that most law enforcement don't arrest those that have experienced an overdose or being overserved, but I wanted it in law, and so that's an example of what several of the bills actually had as a way of a focus, and this bill is simplified. It just deals with the person in need of medical attention. I am so glad that Senator Deering, Senator Alting, Representative Hamilton, and there are others that have voiced support. But what we're doing today is just really simplifying it versus, bringing drug overdoses into the fray. And hopefully the simplification of it will give it momentum. the student leaders probably have the statistics on that, but from my experience, and I think my friends, my partners at the IYSA, I've talked to at least 200,000 people on college campuses for the last 12 years, and that includes middle schools and that includes high schools. But I have never talked to a police officer. I've never talked to a chief of police of a university that has experienced that someone has gone through this a second time. And I think that resonates. One chief of police of a college town, of a university chief of police said that there's so many wraparound services that it just doesn't happen. Jason.
Yeah. So as I mentioned, we've spoken to a lot of departments at Purdue and how this is handled. That situation's rare. A lot of these situations arise because a student might have a mental health concern or they don't know their limits, and we're really just concerned about trying to get them the help they need. It's rare that there's repeat circumstances.
I want to add too, on the university level, if there is a repeat circumstance, the university does get involved and they have educational preventative measures in place for these students if there are, repeated offenses. And so all those police reports the university receives and the university reviews them and follows up with those students. The students aren't immune from having follow-up conversations about if there's an underlying cause. You're immune from having, permanent things on your record. If you are the caller or the person assisting the caller. Mm-hmm. Yeah. FSA, Family and Social Administration. Yeah, for sure. I can also send you the article after too.